The streets of Johannesburg bustled with life, but for 12-year-old Sifo, they were a place of constant struggle. Each day began the same, waking up on a piece of cardboard under a broken streetlight and scrounging for scraps in the nearby market. Despite his hardships, Sifo's spirit remained unbroken. His best friend, Thabo, another homeless child, was his only companion. Together, they shared what little they had and dreamed of a better life. On this particular afternoon, as the sun dipped behind the city's towering skyscrapers, Sifo spotted a well-dressed man stepping out of a luxury car. The man was Mr. Jacobs, a wealthy businessman known for his cold demeanor and sharp business acumen. Sifo approached him, hoping for some spare change. "Please, sir," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Jacobs didn't even glance his way. He muttered, "Get away from my car," and brushed past him, entering a nearby building. Sifo sighed and returned to the market, his empty stomach grumbling. That night, as the rain began to fall, Sifo and Thabo huddled together under a makeshift shelter. One day, Sifo said, staring at the city lights, "We'll leave this life behind." Neither of them could have known how close that day was. The rain poured heavily the next day, turning the streets into rivers of muddy water. Mr. Jacobs, late for a meeting, sped through the slippery roads in his sleek black car. His mind was preoccupied with business deals, leaving little attention for the road ahead. Sifo, sitting on the curb near his usual spot, noticed the car veer dangerously close to the sidewalk as it approached a sharp corner. In a split second, the car lost control, skidding across the wet pavement and slamming into a tree. The impact was deafening, and smoke began to billow from the engine. People on the street froze, too shocked to act. Sifo didn't hesitate. Ignoring the pouring rain and the danger, he sprinted toward the wreckage. Inside, Jacobs lay unconscious, his face pressed against the steering wheel. Flames began to lick at the edges of the car. Sifo tugged at the door handle with all his strength, finally wrenching it open. He grabbed Jacobs by the arms and dragged him out, the heat from the fire singeing his clothes. Just as they reached a safe distance, the car exploded, lighting up the gray sky. Sifo collapsed next to Jacobs, exhausted but alive. The sirens of approaching ambulances echoed through the rain-soaked streets. The sterile white walls of the hospital were a stark contrast to the chaos of the streets. Sifo lay in a bed, his small frame bandaged from the burns he'd sustained during the rescue. In the room next to him, Mr. Jacobs was regaining consciousness, his mind foggy but replaying the moment of the accident. He remembered the boy's face, Sifo's determination as he pulled him from the wreckage. A nurse named Nandi, who had been tending to Sifo, entered Jacob's room. "You owe your life to a boy who has nothing," she said, her tone both gentle and firm. Jacobs was taken aback. "Who is he?" asked. Nandi explained Sifo's situation, a homeless child with no family struggling daily just to survive. Jacobs listened, guilt creeping into his chest as he recalled brushing Sifo off the day before. Later that day, Jacobs visited Sifo's room. The boy looked up at him, his eyes wary but curious. "Why did you save me?" Jacobs asked. "Because no one else would." Sifo replied simply. That answer stayed with Jacobs long after he left the room. For the first time, the wealthy businessman began to question what truly mattered in life. Sifo's recovery was slow but steady. The nurses doted on him, impressed by the bravery of such a young boy. Mr. Jacobs, now out of danger, felt an unshakable obligation to the boy who had saved his life. Encouraged by Nandi, he began visiting Sifo daily, bringing small gifts like books and snacks, though the boy rarely accepted them. Sifo's trust was not easily won. On one such visit, Jacobs sat beside Sifo's bed, awkwardly fidgeting with his tie. "Tell me about yourself," he ventured. Sifo hesitated, his small hands clutching the hospital blanket. "There's not much to tell," he said, but Jacobs pressed gently. Sifo began to talk about losing his parents at a young age, the hunger that gnawed at him daily, and the makeshift family he had created with Thabo and other street children. His voice cracked as he described the cold nights and the moments he felt invisible to the world. Jacobs, moved by Sifo's honesty, shared his own story. Despite his wealth, he admitted to feeling isolated and burdened by the pressure of maintaining his empire. "I've built walls so high that I forgot how to let anyone in," Jacobs confessed. For the first time, they saw each other not as a beggar and a millionaire, but as two people searching for connection. After Sifo was discharged from the hospital, Jacobs offered to drive him back to his home. Sifo hesitated, but eventually agreed, knowing Jacobs needed to see the reality he lived in. They arrived in Soweto, a vibrant but struggling community, filled with the sounds of children playing and the chatter of vendors. Jacobs followed Sifo down narrow, muddy alleys until they reached an abandoned warehouse. Inside, a group of children huddled around a small fire. The smell of smoke and dampness filled the air. "This is home," Sifo said simply. Jacobs was stunned. He had spent millions on luxury properties, yet these children found comfort in a crumbling building. His gaze fell on Thabo, lying on a thin mat in the corner, his shallow breathing a clear sign of illness. Sifo knelt beside his friend, his face a mix of worry and guilt. "We do what we can for each other," Sifo explained, "but it's never enough." The sight of Thabo's frail body shook Jacobs to his core. For the first time, he saw the consequences of his indifference. "No child should have to live like this," he muttered. Sifo looked at him, his eyes filled with both hope and skepticism. "Are you going to do something about it?" Thabo's condition worsened rapidly over the next few days. Sifo spent every moment by his side, holding his friend's hand and whispering promises of a brighter future. Jacobs, now a frequent visitor, arranged for a doctor to visit, but it was too late. Thabo passed away one rainy evening, his frail body finally succumbing to the illness he had fought so hard against. Sifo was inconsolable. He sat silently beside Thabo's lifeless body, tears streaming down his face. "I should have done more," he whispered, his voice cracking. Jacobs placed a hand on his shoulder, but the boy shrugged it off. "You don't understand," Sifo said, his tone sharp with grief. But Jacobs did understand. He felt the weight of his own inaction, knowing his wealth could have saved Thabo if he had acted sooner. That night, as he returned to his luxurious home, he couldn't shake the image of Sifo's broken expression. The loss of Thabo became a turning point for Jacobs. He realized that saving his own life wasn't enough. He needed to use it for something meaningful. Inspired by Sifo's resilience, he resolved to make a difference, not just for Sifo, but for every child in Soweto struggling to survive. The seeds of change had been planted, and Jacobs was determined to honor Thabo's memory by transforming despair into hope. The loss of Thabo lingered heavily in both Sifo and Jacobs's minds, but it also sparked a shared resolve. Jacobs, deeply moved by the injustice he witnessed, invited Sifo to his office. For the first time, the boy stepped into a world of polished floors, sleek furniture, and towering glass windows that overlooked Johannesburg's skyline. "Sifo, I need your help," Jacobs began. "You know the streets, the children. Tell me what they need." Sifo was stunned. No adult had ever asked for his opinion before. Slowly, he described the lack of basic necessities: food, clean water, shelter, and medical care. Jacobs listened intently, jotting down every word. "We'll build a shelter," he said decisively, "a place where children like you can find safety and opportunities." Sifo was skeptical, but hopeful. Could a man like Jacobs truly care? Over the following weeks, they worked together, visiting Soweto to speak with other street children. Jacobs poured his resources into designing a shelter, hiring local builders to ensure it would be more than just a roof over their heads. Through their collaboration, Sifo began to see Jacobs not as just another wealthy man, but as someone committed to change. And for Jacobs, Sifo became a symbol of resilience and hope, reigniting his sense of purpose. Months of planning and construction finally culminated in the grand opening of the shelter. Located in the heart of Soweto, the building stood as a beacon of hope amidst the struggling community. Painted in vibrant colors with murals of smiling children, it was a stark contrast to the grim streets surrounding it. Sifo stood beside Jacobs as they cut the ribbon, surrounded by a crowd of children and community members. For the first time in his life, Sifo felt a sense of pride. He had helped create something that would change lives. Inside, the shelter buzzed with activity. There were beds with clean sheets, a kitchen that served hot meals, and classrooms filled with books and supplies. Sifo watched as children, once as desperate as he had been, explored the space with wide-eyed wonder. Jacobs, observing the joy around him, turned to Sifo. "This is just the beginning," he said. Sifo nodded but remained grounded. "It's not about the building, it's about what we do with it." The shelter became a safe haven for hundreds of children, It wasn't just a place to live, it was a place to dream. And Sifo, now a leader among his peers, began to see the possibilities for a brighter future, not just for himself, but for everyone. Things. As the shelter thrived, so did the bond between Sifo and Jacobs. Despite their different backgrounds, they had become like family, each filling a void in the other's life. Jacobs, once consumed by loneliness, found joy in mentoring Sifo, helping him navigate a world of opportunity. One day, Jacobs surprised Sifo with an offer. "How would you feel about going back to school?" At first, Sifo hesitated. He had been out of school for so long that the idea seemed daunting, but with Jacobs' encouragement and the support of the shelter staff, he enrolled. The transition wasn't easy. He struggled with the coursework and faced judgment from other students who saw him as just a street kid. But Sifo's determination never wavered. Jacobs was there every step of the way, cheering him on and reminding him of his potential. Over time, Sifo excelled, not just academically, but as a role model for the other children at the shelter. For Jacobs, seeing Sifo's growth was deeply fulfilling. He had gained a son, a legacy, and a renewed sense of purpose. Together, they redefined the meaning of family, not one bound by blood, but by love and shared dreams. Years later, the shelter in Soweto stood as a symbol of resilience and transformation. It had grown beyond its original purpose, evolving into a community center with a school, a clinic, and vocational training programs. The walls were adorned with photographs of children who had once been homeless, but now thrived in various walks of life. At the center of this change was Sifo. No longer the wary boy who had once begged on the streets, Sifo had become a confident and articulate young man. Now in his 20s, he was the director of the shelter, using his experiences to inspire and empower others. He often spoke to government officials, advocating for policies that would protect vulnerable children and provide them with opportunities. Jacobs, now older but still deeply involved, watched with pride as Sifo addressed a crowd during the shelter's 10th anniversary celebration. "This place is proof," Sifo said, his voice steady, "that when we invest in people, especially children, we create a ripple effect that changes entire communities." As the audience erupted in applause, Jacobs felt a profound sense of fulfillment. The boy who had once saved his life had now transformed countless others. Together, they had turned tragedy into a legacy of compassion. That night, as they walked through the shelter, Jacobs turned to Sifo. "You've done more than I ever dreamed," he said. Sifo smiled. "We did this together," he replied. The story of Sifo and Jacobs became a beacon of hope, proving that even the smallest act of kindness could ignite a chain of events that changed the world. The story of Sifo and Jacobs teaches us profound lessons about compassion, resilience, and the power of small acts of kindness. Sifo's bravery in saving Mr. Jacobs' life despite his own struggles shows us that even those with the least to give can have the greatest impact. Jacob's transformation reminds us that it's never too late to open our hearts and make a difference in the lives of others. Together, they prove that through empathy and selflessness, we can build a legacy of hope and change that transcends our personal struggles. Have you ever witnessed or experienced a moment where kindness changed someone's life? Share your story in the comments below. We'd love to hear how compassion has made a difference in your community. Thank you for watching until the end. Your time and support mean the world to us. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like the video and share it with your friends and family. Also, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more heartfelt stories like this one. Let's continue spreading positivity and making the world a brighter place, one story at a time. See you in the next video.